into how Northern Ireland's Public Prosecution Service handled allegations of sexual abuse and IRA membership made by Belfast woman Mairia Cahill and two others, has concluded they were let down. The North's Public Prosecutor, Brian McCrory, who has overall responsibility for the service, has apologised to the three people involved.
Belfast-born Mairia Cahill is the person who went public with allegations of how her claims of rape by an IRA member were treated by the Republican movement and by Northern Ireland's authorities. The director of the Public Prosecution Service, Brian McCrory, commissioned a review of how the organisation he leads had behaved. It was carried out by a former DPP for England and Wales and a recently elected Labour MP, Sir Keir Starmer, and an Australian-born barrister, Catherine O'Byrne. Its findings, published today, conclude Mairia Cahill and two others who made complaints were let down.
Each will be given by Sir Keir this morning a letter of apology from me to them, in which there is an offer to meet, so I can personally sit down with them, discuss the issues and apologise on behalf of the Public Prosecution Service now.
Among the other findings, communications with victims and witnesses was variable and inadequate. Frustrated with the system, Mairia Cahill and the other two complainants withdrew their evidence. The people facing charges, some of sexual abuse, some of IRA membership, were acquitted. The report says the time taken to reach decisions to prosecute in the membership cases was too long, and the overall delay in the sexual abuse prosecution was unacceptable.
The individuals concerned who were accused of various crimes in this case have been found not guilty by a court, so unless there is some new and compelling evidence, the case cannot be reopened. So the individuals who were complainants in this case, I'm afraid, have to live with that, and that is a source of great regret for me as the current Director of Public Prosecutions. So I hope that they will take some comfort in knowing that the issues which led to this case going wrong have been long since identified and, in my view, redressed.
Now the report has been published, the analysis of its findings will begin. Tommy Gorman, RTE News, Belfast.
Well, we're joined here in studio by Mairia Cahill. Thanks very much indeed for coming to talk to us, Mairia. You've had a chance to look at this report. What's your response?
I mean, I welcome it. That's the first thing. Unfortunately, we're at the stage where a report has been released with damning findings into it. I mean, I kind of knew that would be the case, but it still has been an emotional roller coaster of a day. Do
you regard it as a vindication for you?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's exactly what I have been saying for the last 4 years, actually. You know, you can track back through my emails to the Public Prosecution Service, and I think Brian McCrory conceded today, you know, I'm not a legally qualified person, and I could see the feelings in the case from the get-go, so yeah, it is.
And the fact that he says he apologised to you personally, I think you met him, is that right? What does that mean?
I welcome it, but I think actions speak louder than words, so I would like to see the recommendations implemented very quickly and properly, and that would help then obviously anybody coming through the process after myself as a victim.
There seems to be there's a number of failings in this whole how this was all handled, not the least of which is the length of time it took. That really seems to be crucial. Eventually the two others who were involved in the sexual assault allegations, they said they just had enough.
You know, and I don't blame them. They hung on for about 3.5 years. About 6 months before you know, the cases collapsed and I withdrew. You know, the other complainants had gone, so really that was another weakened aspect. It has been horrendous, you know, for all of us. You know, and I recognise the hurt of the other two complainants, victims also, because I mean, 4 years is just a completely unacceptable amount of time for anybody to have to wait. So
a long, drawn-out process, and the report identifies constant failures of communication. You really weren't dealt with the way the authors of this report say somebody in your situation should be dealt with.
Yeah, but and actually I had more communication than what the other two victims did, because I kept constant contact with them by email. And essentially I was fighting my own case for 4 years, and that was the situation that we were in. You know, it didn't help. There were other factors in the case which I think may have been alluded to in the report. There were other witnesses. Jerry Adams, for example, had an opportunity to go and meet with the police. He didn't. He issued a statement through his solicitor. Other Sinn Féin representatives did that also, and you know, that I think could have potentially helped to build a stronger case in order to convict someone. So, you know, I don't want to say too much about it, but I do feel completely let down. You know, first of all, let down by the Republican community, let down by Sinn Féin, particularly in the last 7 months, And this report, I think, is a vindication of the fact that it was not my fault that the court case has collapsed. And I think that's very clear from the report today.
Baron McCrory, the prosecutor, he's the man in overall responsibility. Should he says he's instituted reforms and brought in changes, and hopefully something like this couldn't happen again. But do you think he should be considering his own position?
I don't want to get into that. I think, I'm not one for recrimination when people take responsibility. And I've been calling on Sinn Féin, for example, to take responsibility, and they haven't done so. Baron McCrory has taken responsibility today as the head of the Public Prosecution Service. I would much rather now that change is implemented quickly. I think he will implement change. I understand that there are some members of staff, obviously, who have to answer for their own positions in relation to it. I'm not calling for any resignations. I just want to ensure that when victims of sexual abuse come through the criminal justice process, that they're treated properly and with care, and that their cases are prosecuted as strongly as possible.
The other finding today is that there was no, I think the phrase used is, there was no improper motivation in all of this. In other words, I suppose it was incompetence rather than some sort of conspiracy to frustrate your case. Do you accept, having seen the detail in the report, do you accept that?
Well, that was one of the things that I have said from the start in relation to the PPS, was that the cases were badly handled and that I was badly let down. I'm very conscious that there is an Ombudsman complaint ongoing. I think that there will be extremely robust findings from the Ombudsman in relation to the police involvement in the case, and I probably would have liked to have seen an overarching investigation into both agencies together. Keir Starmer has already indicated to myself that he was limited in his report because he couldn't deal with the police aspect, and Stormont, I understand, discussed terms for an inquiry over both agencies, and I would be calling for them to release the terms of reference.
Just finally, very briefly if you can, are you considering further legal action yourself, a civil suit perhaps against the DPP?
My legal representative Joe Rice indicated today that would be something that we would be looking at next week, so I leave that completely in his hands. He's a very competent lawyer. So.